Alright then people, there's a new gun in Battlefield 5. It's an SMG for the medic class called the MAB-38 or MAB-38. I'm going to call it the MAB for this video because it's just easier for me. It's been out for a few days and I've taken my time looking at it and weighing things up so I can provide this video for you. Because I've heard a fairly large amount of people saying it's a clone of the Sten or the MP40, or that it's pointless, boring and whatever else. And well, that's not exactly true, at least not for all of it. The MAB isn't mind-blowing or anything, but it certainly has a role, a place in the game. It fills a gap, and thus, where the naysayers are concerned, it has hidden value. So today, I'll try to illuminate it. To begin with, the MAB is a 600 RPM SMG, which positions it essentially in the middle ground of the currently available SMGs when it comes to rounds per minute and basic damage output. This combined with the base statistics pretty much sees it bridge the gap between the faster firing SMGs and the slower firing SMGs, much like the MP28 does, but in an entirely different fashion, and I'll get to that. But as you'll likely need a point of reference for how this SMG performs, we can look at the SMGs that lie on either side of the MAB. So something like the EMP has a rate of fire of 568 rounds per minute, which is 32 rounds slower than the MAB, and the MP28 fires at 670 rounds per minute, 70 rounds faster than the MAB. So with it now positioned in your mind in a basic sense, what else is there? Well, it has a 20 round magazine as standard, which can be increased to 30 with a specialization, and a solid base model allowing for decent hipfire, ADS and closer mid-range combat without any specializations. Nothing spectacular of course, but solid enough and lending itself to specialization choices to excel in certain areas whilst remaining competent in others. Now let's talk about that bridging of the gap between the slower and faster firing SMGs. Well, obviously that rate of fire is the key aspect. The MAB and the MP28 both lie in that middle ground, but the MP28 leans more towards still being a close range shredder with the addition of some range ability, while the MAB is a more controllable mid-range option whilst maintaining decent close quarters ability. It's not as obviously lethal within a few meters as the MP28, purely because it doesn't spit out as many bullets as quickly, but the base stability is comfortably superior, positioning the MAB as an almost designated closer mid-range choice for SMG usage, if you choose to utilize it in that fashion. I add that caveat because there are fairly distinctly different options for how you can set this weapon up, with more versatile choices than you get with the majority of other SMGs. And this is where the hidden value becomes even more noticeable. So you can basically run it three ways. This kind of setup for all-out hipfire and more close quarters combat focused play, but with a decent base model to still contest at closer medium ranges with decent recoil control from the user. Or this kind of setup for all-out ADS and mid-range focused play while still being decent at close quarters due to that 600 RPM rate of fire and the decent base model. Or this kind of setup for a mixture of the two by virtue of enhanced grips being a fourth pick option on this weapon specialization tree. So you have possibilities that you don't have on most other SMGs. Overall, it's kind of a jack of all trades in that it covers those gaps and is pretty decent at most things, but also not a great jack of all trades if you're looking for actual true situational versatility rather than just base level specialization versatility. I say this by virtue of there being the Sten and the MP40, not top tier weapons based on stats at all, but they're so consistent at so many ranges because they're so easy to use and stable. So it depends how you look at it and what your preferences are. It may be the case that the different options the MAB provides leads you to a specific setup that you really connect with and you can't achieve with any other SMG, which obviously would be a great result and highlights that this weapon truly can fill a gap not filled by other SMGs, i.e. it's worth giving a chance even if you initially took a look and thought it was a wasted addition to the game. But let's get into the more experience-based aspects. How is the weapon when you're actually running around with it? Well, for me, the main thing to focus upon was the hipfire, which was decent without the relevant specializations and very reliable with them. 600 RPM is more than controllable, even from the hip, and obviously even more so with the hipfire specs, allowing for pretty easy close range combat wins and the ability to aim from the hip for the head and chest area with little difficulty. Now, it's not a run and gun hipfire monster like say the Tommy gun, but it's nice to have it combined with still manageable ADS fire a little outside of close range. A good solid combo if you can keep to the right areas of the map. But because of the existence of the Tommy gun and the Suomi, I wouldn't be at all surprised if a lot of people go for the MAB as a closer mid-range powerhouse. and I did find it to be very effective for this, while still not feeling underpowered in CQC. But it does suffer at longer ranges. It's a bit of an odd one really, as it's good at mid-range, but then kinda lacking beyond it. It kicks that bit too much for longer ranges, usually up and to the right. It's like it's been designed purely for that mid-range role in some regards. So it's kinda muddled, but I think I get it from a balanced perspective, and it's still viable with any of the 3 spec setups in either close or mid-ish range, as long as the user is competent. Burst firing comes into play here, as an able user can boost their range abilities a bit if they have decent control of the trigger and their aim, but it's still not enough to go for true long range. I'll also add that the reason I lean more so towards liking the hipfire specs for the map is due to that base 20 round magazine. 20 rounds and a 600 RPM weapon can feel somewhat limiting. That gives you 2 seconds of constant fire. Think about that. Think about the average length of a single engagement, or imagine if you missed some shots. I was reloading a lot and not feeling all that confident going for a 3rd or sometimes even 2nd kill without a reload, which makes the 30 round spec kind of a crutch pick if you want to play in a more mobile and aggressive manner without near constant ducking for cover. And that specialization is on the side of and plays into the hipfire setup. Now, while we're talking about how I found and enjoyed the weapon, in case you're new here, I used the Latty sight on SMGs, including the map. I didn't used to like it, I didn't like it at all to be honest, and I still think it's too obstructive. But for me, this is the best sight of a bad bunch for SMGs. There aren't any truly great ones when compared with what's available for other classes. So I used the Latty sight for that little bit of extra magnification and precision, especially useful for those mid-range fights. If you don't use it, just give it a try. It may take some time to get used to if you're like me, but eventually it became my go-to option. If you just can't get on with it, then no harm done, just switch back to your usual choice. Now in addition, of course the map's strengths and weaknesses may well be negated or exaggerated when you compare PC and console. I play on console. On PC it's easier to aim and control recoil, so do keep that in mind. It may well be that it has an even stronger base feel on PC, and all upgrades are even more of a bonus, likely making it either somewhat of a laser beam with ADS specs, or a good all-rounder with monstrous hipfire if you go for hipfire specs. And so let's round this up. The map does fill gaps in terms of the possible setups and playstyles for SMGs, whilst also not being the most unique or exciting option. I don't think it's a top tier choice. Often weapons focused upon min-maxing are the out and out statistical monsters, which can be used to their max potential by more able players. And it's also not the easiest SMG to use, as the Sten and the MP40 are just so simple and stable. But it's a nice middle ground, and the right sort of player will really connect with it. It bridges the gap between the slower and faster firing SMGs, but not in an initially totally obvious fashion. It's a solid mid-range option, so it can be confusing when it feels pretty bad beyond there. This mainly comes down to reasonably low recoil for its rate of fire, but not low enough to be good at long range and lacking a specialization to reduce vertical recoil. But the base stats are still strong enough for it to be manageable in your usual SMG engagements, even without any upgrades selected for stability or accuracy. So it's pretty decent out of the gate, and you can then tweak from there based upon your preferences, rather than needing to make up for any significant deficiencies in regards to what you'd expect an SMG to be capable of. And I had fun with it, so it gets a thumbs up from me and has pretty good balancing overall. But of course, I'd like to know what you think. Do you like the map? Have you tried it yet? If not, are you looking forward to giving it a go? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this today, the best thing you can do is turn on those notifications, as YouTube doesn't keep people reliably up to date anymore with subscriptions. And of course, I'd still appreciate it if you'd like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join my Discord server in the description and my pinned comment. The rest of the video is a little bit of gameplay I have left. I'll play that out with some background music. If you want to stay for that, then great. If not, then I hope you have a good day or night. I'll throw up the board of awesome at the end of the video for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters.